and Justice Network of San Joaquin.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Phonebooth here on KXVS, the Voice of San Joaquin. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good to hear. Also joining us in the studio today is a reoccurring guest here on the show, my little brother, Lucas Heitman. How you doing today, Lucas?
Good.
Good to hear, good to hear. Now, for those of you who might be first-time listeners of the show, the Phonebooth is a show completely dedicated to the world of pop culture. Anything from movies to video games to TV shows to comic books, you name it, and we do our very best to cover it. Now, today we have a very exciting episode. We're going to be talking about the trailer release for the third installment, well, not the third installment, but Borderlands 3.
Yeah, the fourth or fifth, depending on how you...
It's kind of tricky to pinpoint exactly. It's technically the fifth, but it's also technically the third.
It's the fourth game in the main genre, I'd
Yes.
say, but it's the fifth game released, but the third game in the main series.
Yes.
And
we'll-
Borderlands 3. Let's just go with Borderlands 3.
And we'll go further in depth into that and talk everything about Borderlands 3 and what we expect about it. But for now, we're just going to start off with our weekly recap, where we talk about some of the news that has dropped within the week and kind of give our opinion on it. Now, I'm going to let you start off with this one, Brian, because we had another video game event recently that happened. Tell us a little bit about PAX.
PAX 2019, or I believe it was PAX East 2019, because there are different PAXs, happened over the last week or so. And it's not necessarily a video game event, it's more of an all-around nerdy event. Less, movie or TV focused like Comic-Con, but not video game focused like E3. It's just sort of an all-around middle of the schedule type thing. But we did get some good announcements. Of course, there was Borderlands 3, which sort of took over the weekend. There was also the release date for Trover Saves the Universe, the new game from Justin Roiland, the creator of Rick and Morty's game studio, Squanch Studios.
First game made by Squanch Games.
Yes, technically by Squanch Games, because they've had so many different names.
Yeah, I think they had Rick and Morty VR first.
I think there's an entire web of studios going on here. I'm not going to get into it.
Right.
But it is the next game of this style of humor with Justin Roiland behind the wheel.
Yeah.
It will be on May 31st. There is a trailer out. I will warn you, it is a very hard R.
Oh yeah, lots of foul language, as expected from the creators of Rick and Morty.
We also got confirmation that the game was revealed as a VR game, but it will be playable not in VR, which is nice.
Which is awesome, because I was really excited to try out the game, and I was kind of bummed out that it would have been a VR exclusive,
Yeah, I'll be getting it now that I know it's, not VR exclusive.
Definitely.
We also got other Borderlands announcements, including a board game and Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party, which is a robot building game. We got Borderlands Game of the Year Edition, which is a remaster of the original Borderlands, finally getting a Game of the Year Edition, like, 9 years after it launched.
Which is weird, because I could have sworn the first Borderlands had a Game of the Year edition. My little brother had it. It came with all the DLC and things like that.
Yes.
With Dead Island
Not Dead Island.
It was, what was it? I can't remember, but it's...
But it had all the story
Dead
modes
Island.
included into it.
Yeah, well, we're getting another Game of the Year edition for it now with, remastered 4K graphics. Golden chests that appeared later on in the series will be in the game, and I believe they touted the fact that this one has a mini-map now. Did the first one not originally have a mini-map?
Lucas, did the first Borderlands have a little mini-map?
They...
I don't think they had a mini-map. I think they had a heads-up display.
They
Okay.
had, like, a little map on the side of the corner of the screen, and
Did
you
they?
try to... Yeah, they have, like, a big map that you can scout areas.
You can access a giant map, not
Okay.
a mini-map.
Okay, well then it's
Yeah.
going to have a mini-map now, which, good.
Yeah.
All games that have any form of exploration should have some sort of mini-map.
Yeah. The only games I can give exception for that to would be Bethesda games.
Yeah, I'd give you that. We also are getting 4K graphics and sort of gameplay, well, not gameplay, but lighting and things
Mechanics,
like that, updates for 2 and the pre-sequel on PC. No word on whether those are going to come to consoles.
Now, I have to admit, seeing the trailers for these remasters, amazing. Because one thing that a lot of people remember about the Borderlands games is its unique art style. The characters would have very dark lines around themselves. They looked like characters you would see out of a Telltale game, which is ironic because Borderlands has a Telltale game. But in the 4K remaster, everything's touched up way better.
Yeah, I do like that they're sort of touching up the games to get them graphically similar to 3, and in the Game of the Year edition's gameplay with things like, the mini-map and golden chests. They're updating them so it's a bit more of a cohesive experience in case people want to buy, the first 3 games to get ready for 3.
Right.
The only DLC that I liked in the Borderlands series was Claptrap's Love Revolution. You get it because at the end of that DLC, you fight Claptrap, but he's evil and he got a big robot with him.
Not surprising, given it's Claptrap.
I'm of the opinion that Claptrap is always evil. It's Claptrap.
Okay, well, on to the next little bit of news. Now, a while ago, the directors of Avengers Endgame said that a rough cut of the movie was 3 hours long, but it would get shorter. Well, along with the release date and the title, it turns out they fibbed about that fact as well. And according to online ticket sites, Endgame will be 3 hours and 2 minutes long. And to be honest, I am honestly not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised, and I don't think I'd want them to make it shorter because it needs to wrap up so much, but it's going to be sitting in a theater chair for 3 hours. That's going to...
Well, I mean, anybody who sat through a Lord of the Rings movie would think that that's just some easy task,
I've never seen a Lord of the Rings. I saw The Hobbit, the first Hobbit movie.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting because one thing that they have been mentioning is just that this is going to be a very, very long movie. I remember a while back they revealed to us that any trailer scenes we get to see, any clips from the trailers is only from within the first 30 minutes of the movie, and it seems like there's so much going on just in the 30 minutes alone.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that it necessarily takes 3 hours for this movie to come to a conclusion.
Yeah. It's going to be a long time in the movie theater.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, I'll let you take on the next little topic.
The Charlie's Angels reboot that is in the works has been pushed back from November 1st to November 15th. So not a terrible pushback, 2 weeks. This was due to prevent it from having to compete with Wonder Woman, 1984, as well as possibly improving its international success in the box office. It also doesn't want to... So... Movie schedules are weird. So Wonder Woman 1984 was going to have this spot, but then it got delayed till summer of 2020 to, to be a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
So Charlie's Angels and the new Terminator Dark Fate took its place, but now Charlie's Angels is moving back by 2 weeks, so it doesn't have to compete with Terminator. And its schedules are these weird houses of cards where everything's getting shifted and sometimes it falls over. And then something like Avengers Infinity War comes along and decides to move up its release by a week, and everything comes tumbling down to try to avoid it.
Right. Now, I gotta admit, I am still pretty interested in the Charlie's Angels reboot. There was a couple of interesting actresses who were confirmed to play roles in there. One of them was, what caught me by surprise was Kristen Stewart, I believe, was supposed to be playing as one of the angels.
Interesting.
You know, and I'd just like to see how this goes, given that Charlie's Angels. I mean, it's an enjoyable series, but it's also a bit dated, in my opinion.
It's a little dated.
A little dated, but the latest version that had come out with Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, you know, that was a pretty good film series, you know, so I think it has potential.
Yeah, the reboot is, I believe, being produced by Elizabeth Banks, the actress, and she's got a very good record of... She's a funny actress. She's really funny. I really enjoy her.
Right, you know, so I'm looking forward to that. On to the next little bit of news. Now, some of you who might be fans of horror video games might be familiar with the franchise, with the video game Dead by Daylight. Now, its overall premise is it's a 4-player game where 3 of you play as survivors trying to reactivate the power generators, which would lead to your escape, while the 4th player plays the role of this killer or this monster who is actively trying to eliminate the other 3 players in the most gruesome way possible. And there have been a couple of inclusions of famous horror icons. In fact, at one point in time, they included Halloween's Laurie Strode onto the list of survivors. Mm-hmm. Now, we've gotten a recent inclusion, one that has me very excited. It turns out Ash Williams of Evil Dead fame will now be a playable survivor in Dead by Daylight. Hail to the king, baby. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm of a few minds about this. On the one hand, I love Ash Williams, and I'm not upset about them including him. On the other hand, I've noticed a trend in Dead by Daylight recently where they're adding a lot of movies to the game instead of their original stuff. Because when the game first launched, it was a bunch of their original monsters, original survivors. But then there were things like they added Freddy Krueger, and then they added Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, and then they added Jigsaw from the Saw series.
Yeah.
And they've been adding a lot of They don't have Jason, because that's a different video game.
Yeah. You know, I'm honestly not surprised that they're doing the movie route, because when Dead by Daylight first came out, it was original characters and original movies. But around that time, I believe was also around the time that they had dropped Friday the 13th, the video game.
Yeah, that dropped a few months after Dead by Daylight.
What are your thoughts, Lucas?
I have seen the gameplay.
For Dead by Daylight?
Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th.
Okay.
It's an online game.
Yeah.
And there's about 6 players.
I think it's still. I think it's the same premise as Dead by Daylight. It's still a 4-player game.
There are actually a lot more players in Friday the 13th.
Oh, okay.
I think you can have up to 7 survivors and 1 Jason.
Okay.
Yeah, and then basically Jason's moves are good, but
you're
gonna have to be careful about this extra player that comes in with a gun.
Oh yeah, it's your typical. It's like you're basically playing a Friday the 13th movie. You know, you have your survivors of each specific category in the old school cheesy horror genre, and then you have somebody as the unstoppable Jason Voorhees.
There's only two decisions to make it out alive. If you take the car, you need to find the battery first, and then put it in the car, and then you have to drive as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's a good game, but
if Jason gets in front of the car, then the car gets damaged.
Cool. Yeah, we gotta move along a little bit, but yeah, the reason why I brought it up is because it's not really surprising to me about the fact that around the time that game was made was when other people started to want to include horror movie characters into video games. You know?
Yeah.
And I believe before the Friday the 13th game was around that before that game dropped, it was around the time that Mortal Kombat 10 included Jason Voorhees and some other horror icons, right?
Yeah, that's been the thing for the past few Mortal Kombat games. And also this gameplay style of the 4v1 where the one is this massive monster has been around for a little bit. It's
Evolve,
a lot more,
I think, was one.
Evolve, yeah. Evolve made it, really popular, and that's when people started doing it in earnest. I believe there was a mode in Left 4 Dead 2 where you could do it, but I'm not 100% on that.
I know Black Ops Zombies had an option like that where 3 of them were soldiers, one of them was the zombie, you hunt them down. So it's been around for a while, but it's interesting that Ash Williams was included into the game, so we thought it'd be interesting to mention it.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and take on the next little topic, my friend.
Don Rickles, the voice of Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story series, will apparently have a role in Toy Story 4 despite his passing away in 2017.
Now, this was announced basically through a tweet that showed Mr. Potato Head and had some vague messaging to it, but basically implied that he is still holding the title of Mr. Potato Head in the film. And we're not sure exactly how he's going to reprise his role given that he passed away in 2017. Though we assume it's probably going to be in the same method that they're going to include Carrie Fisher's character, Princess Leia, in Episode 9.
Probably a lot less expensive, though. They'd only really need archive audio instead of footage and possible CGI.
Yeah, you know, because, well, I mean, with Episode 9, in case you didn't know, Lucas, the actress who played as Princess Leia had passed away in the last Star Wars movie.
I have heard of that.
Yeah, and in the new one that's coming out, they still want to have her in there and her character. So they're going to take, like, scenes that were cut out from the last movie and dialogue, and they're going to throw that into the new one to still have her in that movie.
And what do I feel like they're going to have, like, someone that's really, really good to play as Princess Leia?
They're not. They're still having the same person.
Yeah, they're using basically computer magic at this point to have her in the movie, even though she passed away before filming.
We're in that era.
Yep. I mean, they can de-age Samuel L. Jackson. They can
exactly what I was thinking, too.
They can recreate Princess Leia. They did whatever they did with Tarkin in Rogue One, which I don't think is a good example of what they can do.
Right.
Creepy Tarkin.
But yeah, it's interesting though, because I mean, Mr. Potato Head was a very popular character in the Toy Story franchise. You know, people liked Buzz and Woody, but then there was your background characters. People enjoyed Rex, people enjoyed Ham, people enjoyed Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head. So
yeah,
it's good to see that he's still getting some bit of a portrayal.
This is actually the third, I believe, you know, sort of big background character to lose their voice actor, because Sarge, the Army Man, his voice actor passed away back in 2016, I believe, and the voice of Slinky Dog passed away in 2006, before the third one even came out.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
But anyways, on to the next little bit of news. Now, this is a rumor we've heard. This hasn't been confirmed, but it's in speculation that Angelina Jolie is in talks to join the cast of Marvel's The Eternals in an unknown role. Now, The Eternals is supposed to be like this long history-spanning romance about this group of people and the monstrous people that are alongside them. Now, again, this is a rumor. We don't know if it's officially been confirmed that she's going to be in this role, but it will be awesome because people have wanted Angelina Jolie to be in a superhero movie for so long. You know, she's the perfect. She seems like she could play off. I know it's kind of a stereotype here, but she seems like she could pull off a decent villain role. Because I enjoyed her portrayal as Maleficent in that one movie, you know, and I honestly thought that she could have done a good job playing as the villain of Thor Ragnarok. You know,
she could have done that.
She could have done that, yeah. So fingers crossed that she does, you know, get her chance in the Marvel universe. You know.
It'll be interesting because it's been rumored that the Avengers won't actually be sort of the main glue of the next era of the Marvel Universe after Endgame, that it'll actually be the Eternals sort of taking their spot as the, you know, big event movies.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. All right, on to the next little bit of news.
The next XXX film may have hit yet another delay. George Zack, a producer on the original film, has revived a lawsuit against Vin Diesel and the former rights holders of the film's Revolution Studios. The suit is over an alleged agreement that Zack would be credited on all future XXX films, which he hasn't been. The lawsuit was first filed in 2016, a judge struck it down, an appeals court brought it back, and now we're back at Vin Diesel and Revolution are being sued.
Yeah, it's interesting. He mentioned that he was due at least $250,000 from the latest one that came out, Xander Cage. And supposedly he might earn even more from the upcoming XXX film if it does get released and everything. And it was kind of fell off into silence back when this lawsuit was originally going on because of the fact that he had so little evidence to back him up.
Yeah, oral agreements, which is what he's saying he had, are hard to prove because, again, they're oral agreements. Unless you have a recording of them or some sort of, you know, written version of it, it's hard to prove.
Right.
And honestly, I was looking at this lawsuit for a while trying to figure out who the good guy and the bad guy was here, and I think this is just one of those things where there are just two guys. There's not necessarily a good guy, there's not necessarily a bad guy, it's just two people people and a studio fighting over money.
It was just a disagreement, it seems.
Yeah, and it's we'll bring you an update if we get one anytime soon. I mean, this was first filed 3 years ago, so it may take a while to actually conclude.
Well, anyways, on to the next little bit of news. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about Ghostbusters 3 when it's coming out. The supposed sequel to the original film series, with the latest Ghostbusters kind of not really being canon in this film series. However, as much as everybody tried to assume that this was going to include just the original cast of characters, there seems to be several main characters who will don proton packs in Ghostbusters 3, most of them being teenagers. And one of them, we do have a confirmed leading actress in this film. McKenna Grace, who recently appeared in Captain Marvel, has been cast as a lead actress in Ghostbusters 3.
She's good. She was recently in Captain Marvel. She played a young Carol Danvers. She was in it for all of 2 minutes, but she's also been in Designated Survivor as the daughter Penny. She was apparently in The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, which I've heard is very good, but terrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like that she'll do great in the Ghostbusters 3.
Well, yeah, she's a good actress. I mean, she's a child actress, which they're always a little, they haven't quite got it down yet, but
she's a teen actress. Teen actresses and child actresses kind of have like their different levels of acting, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those areas where they're still sort of honing the craft. They haven't quite got it down yet, so I don't like the assumption that all child actors or teen actors are bad.
Yeah,
but there is sort of a precedent for it. But she's good. I like her.
Yeah, child actors and child actresses are very hit or miss. There's been a lot of really bad portrayals in films, but then there's also been really good ones. Stranger Things, the entire series is a great example of child actors doing really, really well with their deliveries.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm still 50-50 just on the fact that there's another Ghostbusters movie. As excited as I am, because I am excited to watch this movie, it's also like we've already had enough Ghostbusters,
Yeah, I've never actually been a huge fan of Ghostbusters.
I've enjoyed it. It's a good popcorn movie to watch. I mean, I admit I myself haven't really been obsessed with Ghostbusters, but it is a fun series to watch. It just doesn't feel like something that should still be going on because the last Ghostbusters didn't seem to do very well.
Yeah. Ghostbusters 1 was fine. Ghostbusters 2 was bad. Answer the Call, I'm not going to give my opinion on because that's just going to lead to...
it's a hot button issue.
But I don't think the response is to sort of ignore Answer the Call and sort of reboot the series with kid actors. I mean, maybe it'll be good, but it does seem like it's sort of an extreme reaction.
Yeah, I agree. So it doesn't seem as if it's a reboot. It's supposed to be a continuation of the original series, while the last Ghostbusters was kind of a reboot, I believe.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. They kept saying, oh, no, it's not a reboot. Oh, yes, it is a reboot. But it's a sequel and a reboot at the same time. Who knows?
When Bill Murray appears on the movie and he's not playing his original role as Bankman, I kind of assume it's a reboot.
Yeah, and there were theories that, he's just Bankman in disguise because he's being hunted by the government. Like, what? Where are you getting this? What is this theory?
Yeah, it's odd.
It is.
But anyways, go ahead and take on the next little subject.
Jai Courtney will be returning as Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad.
And that's good because there's been a lot of rumors whether who's going to stay and who's going to go. In case you're not familiar, the Suicide Squad is a complete reboot of the original.
Yes.
It's going to be directed by James Gunn, more well-known for his Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and he's also getting some popularity for the upcoming superhero horror film Brightburn.
Looks neat.
Yes. And after it was announced that he's doing the Suicide Squad, a lot of people were wondering who's going to stay and who's going to go. Margot Robbie, who plays as Harley Quinn, it still hasn't been confirmed whether she's staying or going.
Yeah.
Will Smith's portrayal as Deadshot has been blown out the water. It's confirmed he's not going to be in this movie when it comes out. But I'm kind of glad that Captain Boomerang, his original actor, is going to be staying in the film because I did like his character in Suicide Squad.
I enjoyed the portrayal. I didn't really like what they did with his character. I mean, I'm not, Captain Boomerang wouldn't do this. This is a terrible portrayal. But I didn't really like the entire alcoholic angle they went with him.
I liked him because he had one of the funniest scenes in Suicide Squad where Rick Flag finally deactivates everyone's collars. Like, okay, if you want to go home and not do this mission, you can go ahead and do it. And he immediately just walks off screen. And he's just gone.
And that was good because that's what they built him up as a character for. That was,
Yeah, I loved it. It was my favorite part. It was one of my favorite scenes. It was hilarious, So I think it's awesome that he's coming back.
Yeah.
On to the next little topic. Detective Comics, okay, has recently released its 1,000th issue.
1,000.
1,000 issues of Detective Comics.
No, for those that don't know, Detective Comics is the series where in the 39th issue was the first appearance of Batman.
Yep.
And it has currently really just turned into another Batman comic. It did that pretty quickly after Batman gained popularity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, man, it's amazing that we've reached so far. The issue has 84 different variant covers.
So many.
And it features the first canon appearance of the Arkham Knight, which was, until now, only appeared in the Arkham video games.
Yeah, the Arkham Knight was from his, similarly named game, Arkham Knight. It turned out to just be Jason Todd, even though they promised it would be a new character. But since Jason Todd already exists in this canon universe, unless it's a clone of Jason Todd, which Ed brought up.
Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you.
This may actually be a chance for them to make an actual original character like they said they were.
And it'd be interesting, because the Arkham Knight in the video games seem to have basically been the same premise as the Red Hood, in a way.
It was the same exact premise as Red Hood, except they called him Arkham Knight, basically.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see who dons the helmet of the Arkham Knight and how he would interact with the Red Hood if it's not, the Red Hood this whole entire time. But man, it's just, we had to mention it because it's such an epic milestone for DC, because Detective Comics is one of its most popular comic lines. Action Comics used to be a pretty good runner-up, but it's not really as popular anymore as Detective Comics.
It's still running, and it'll probably hit its 1,000th issue by this time next year, I think, if I'm doing the math right.
Yeah, and it'll be awesome to see the 1,000th issue of that movie, that comic, as well. So, that's awesome. Go ahead and take away the next topic.
Okay, so Valve's trading right now. It launched in November with around 60,000 players or more at its peak, and now its peak is around 350 players. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this. The fact that it was a $20 game where you still had to buy more cards, the fact that it took so long for them to introduce a way you could play to earn cards, the issues with the system, the integration of the Valve marketplace where card prices went up and down depending on demand for them. There was a lot of stuff not to like about this game at launch, and a lot of people didn't, which is why they lost, I think the estimate is 99.7% of its player base.
I still remember when Artifact was first announced on stage, and you just hear that collective boo!
Yeah, and like I was telling Ed earlier, I felt bad for Blizzard, kind of, with the Diablo Immortal announcement, because they didn't quite understand what they're stepping into with that. Valve
Don't you guys have phones? I remember.
That was a bad response. But Valve, they knew what fans wanted. They knew the game they were hoping they would announce. And instead we got Artifact.
Why can't Valve count to 3?
Because it's expensive to count to 3. And Valve would rather not do anything. That's sort of the entire purpose of Steam, is so they can sit down, not do anything, and make ridiculous amounts of money.
But, I mean, there's so many games that everybody's been wanting Valve to make, especially around the time that they announced it was working on a new one. We've been wanting Half-Life 3 for eons, it seems. We've been wanting Left 4 Dead 3. We've been wanting Team Fortress 3. We've been wanting Portal 3. Any of these third installments. But no, we get a card game.
We get a card game. So, for a time, Valve has been silent about how poorly Artifact was doing. Their social media account, I believe its Twitter account, has been silent since December.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really bad.
They don't want to explain.
Yeah. And fans were afraid that it was just, they were ignoring it until the game went away and died, and they would just, try to sweep it under the rug. Luckily for fans, Valve does not appear to be doing that. In a blog post, Valve recognized that there were deep-rooted problems with the Artifact game. They didn't specify what those deep-rooted problems were, but things I listed earlier. And they promised long-term support and changes, including, changes to deep-rooted issues. And they said these changes would not be quick or easy, but they were coming. So I'm guessing probably we'll get an Artifact 2.0 at some point. It's like a full relaunch of the game.
Do we really need it, though?
There's still at least 350 people that like this game. And I think for them, it's great that Valve is trying.
But it's 350 people out of all the people who originally started playing the game.
And they'll probably try to draw people back with the major improvements. It's not unheard of for a game to do this. Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO, launched in a horrible state and got a pretty much full reboot.
That's true.
And now I've heard it's pretty good. Haven't played it because it's still a subscription game in this era.
Yeah, that's the only thing holding me back, honestly, is the subscription.
Yeah, I may pay $15. It's still $15 a month, I think, which is a lot.
Yeah. But, yeah. Well, that about does it for our weekly recap, ladies and gentlemen. If there's anything we missed that you want us to talk about in the next episode, please let us know. You know, we're always looking for your feedback and any new little tidbits to talk about, so be sure to just let us know. And without further ado, it's time for us to jump into our next segment, Trailer Talk, where we talk about some of the latest trailers to have dropped and give our overall opinion on them. And we have 2 trailers in particular here for us to talk about, and one of the ones, if you've watched the show for a while, I keep having to convince Brian that it exists.
No, it doesn't.
It exists.
Nope.
It is real.
This is an elaborate ruse on your part.
No, you saw the trailer and this exists and you know it.
Fake trailers exist.
The first trailer for the live-action Dora movie, Dora and the Lost City of Gold. Its U.S. release date is August 2nd, 2019, and this is starring Isabella Moner, Eva Longoria, Temuera Morrison, and others. The synopsis is that Dora, a teenage explorer, leads her friends on an adventure to save her parents and solve the mystery behind a lost city of gold. Directed by James Bobin, which is a shocker because for the longest time we were all under the assumption that Michael Bay was working on this movie.
Michael Bay would just make this even more horrible.
What are your thoughts?
Okay. No swearing.
No swearing. Radio friendly.
Okay. My problem with this movie, and why I like to pretend it doesn't exist, is because it's not for anyone. Dora the Explorer, the original show, was designed for preschoolers to gain a knowledge of the Spanish language, teach them basic Spanish skills. That's all it was for. It was simple, it was brightly colored. People call it dumb, because it was dumb.
It was a Nick Jr. show.
3-year-olds are idiots. And that's because they're 3-year-olds. So it was designed to teach these tiny little morons how to speak Spanish. That's all the show was for. That's all it needed to be for. But this movie isn't for the tiny dumb 3-year-olds. It's for some sort of
teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers, preteen audience who at this point, I mean, Dora's been off the air since, I believe, 2014.
I didn't even know it was off the air.
Yeah, it went off the air. They tried to replace it with some sort of tween version of Dora that failed pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, you remember that? You remember that? And that's actually, I think, a part of this entire fiasco is that, who is this for? This isn't for the kids that watch Dora. This can't really be for the kids they're aiming for. Because why would it be? Why would this be? Because it's an adaptation of Dora the Explorer. Kids at the age they're going for are going to think it's a show for babies. I mean, I remember being that age and thinking that. And then there's one casting choice that shows they're trying to market to parents somehow. For Boots the monkey, the tiny childlike monkey who is supposed to be younger than Dora, you want to know who they've cast?
Tell them who
you want to know who they've cast? They've cast Danny Trejo. They've cast Machete. They've cast Machete as Boots the monkey.
Oh my god.
Why?
Why?
Who? What? This is an attempt to pander to parents somehow. But you know what? It's not going to work because parents aren't going to want to see this movie because it's Dora the Explorer. So they're going to take their kids to see it. You know who's not going to get why it's funny that Danny Trejo is voicing Boots the Monkey? The 11-year-olds, because they probably don't even know who Danny Trejo is. And you know who's not going to like it? The kids, the tiny people that know Boots the Monkey as this tiny child, and now it's being voiced by this old angry grandpa man. Who is this for? This is a choice that's trying to appeal to everyone, but will alienate absolutely every audience. This entire movie shouldn't exist. This entire movie is some executive's idea who saw they still had the rights to the property and thought, we can still milk a few dollars out of this. It doesn't matter.
And it's a shocker, too, because this is really being proposed as like some kind of Indiana Jones movie, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense given that Dora is an explorer and everything, but there's literally a line in the trailer. Dora has a knife.
And that's, I think, the perfect encapsulation of everything wrong, everything bad, everything flawed about this movie is Dora has a knife, everyone. Dora has a knife. And that's this movie in a nutshell. It's something that so fundamentally misunderstands its source material of what it's supposed to be for, that Dora has a knife.
And it's awkward, too, because before she goes back into the jungle to try and find this city, like, they try their best to hint that, like, the beginning of the movie would be, like, Dora trying to deal with, like, high school stuff and everything.
Why?
But you could tell they clearly couldn't figure out where to go with that, because eventually they end up back in the jungle anyways, so...
Yeah, basically, it's the parents going, Dora, we want you to go to high school. And then immediately she gets to high school and gets kidnapped and sent back to the jungle. Like, really?
Yeah.
Why?
And it's awkward, too, because it isn't the first time that Nickelodeon tried doing a live-action movie based off one of their properties. I still remember Grow Up Timmy Turner, where Drake Bell played as Timmy Turner.
Oh my god.
With the CGI fairies.
Oh my! Oh, I'd forgotten about it. Well, They made a sequel to that.
There is a sequel to that.
I believe it was like a Christmas-themed sequel for whatever reason.
Yes, it's Nickelodeon. This doesn't work. It doesn't work.
They need to get rid of their executives. Somehow the executives need to get pushed out and replaced because whoever's in charge now is bad at it. They're bad at it.
Yes. But anyways, that's the trailer that we've gotten so far. Dora has a knife, Danny Trejo is Boots the monkey, and she's it's a thing and it exists, and you watch the trailer and give us your opinion.
Also, living in the jungle was Diego's thing. He's the one that lived in the jungle. Dora lived in some sort of weird mishmash of biomes, but not specifically the jungle.
But now Diego's like a high schooler who's completely forgotten, who like doesn't seem interested in exploring anything anymore.
Moving on.
Moving on. We have to
start yelling about this again.
We have to move on, or we'll be stuck here all day. The next trailer that we have, one that you got to watch, Lucas, is the first trailer for the Angry Birds Movie 2. Its U.S. release date is August 16th, 2019, starring Jason Sudeikis, Josh Gad, Rachel Bloom, and many others. The synopsis is that a hilarious all-star cast of new and returning talent are brought together as the flightless birds and scheming green pigs take their beef to the next level. And it's directed by Thurup Van Orman and John Rice. The birds and the pigs are teaming up together to deal with a third island that is full of birds that can launch ice balls.
Why do I feel like they're gonna do great on this one, better than the first one? I just don't know why.
I forgot you got to watch the first one.
Yeah, in the first one, I liked the ending, but because they didn't show it in like the beginning. Because you remember the bluebirds?
Yeah.
The bluebird that you get to use and it shoots out 3.
Yeah.
They showed that at the ending of the movie.
Right.
The first one.
Yeah. And it's I can understand why they tried the premise. Like, what else could you really do with the Angry Birds after the first movie? You know, because the first movie kind of basically summed up everything that all the games are about. So what the heck are you going to do with the next movie? So they had to include extra characters. And we do get to see some of the birds that were introduced in the games later on. Like Silver was a new character included in the movie, and she's been recently introduced into the Angry Birds games. There are so many Angry Birds games.
So many.
We recently looked at the list. There is a VR Angry Birds.
Yeah.
A VR Angry Birds. There's
an Angry Birds RPG.
Yes, there is. Angry Birds Evolved or Evolution, I think it was called.
Yeah.
You know.
You can't judge Rio for all of this.
Rio was a good one. I will give that. Rio and Star Wars were fun ones to play. I did like those ones.
And those were back in the early days of Angry Birds when it was, sort of, novel and revolutionary for them to have these spin-offs with these actual properties.
Yeah.
And then they kept making more.
Yeah, and they're still making more to the point where you don't even realize that they're still making more of them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, all in all, the movie doesn't look bad.
It doesn't.
It doesn't look bad. Animation-wise, Angry Birds 2 looks okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Illumination that's making this.
Yes. Sony Pictures Animation, I believe.
Oh, Sony Pictures Animation. They're fine. They're not the best, but they're not terrible.
Right.
I mean, they produced Into the Spider-Verse, which
was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're a fan, if you or your child are a fan of the Angry Birds series, I know
Should
Lucas
watch
is a
it.
fan of Angry Birds. We know a few people who are fans of Angry Birds. You should totally check out the trailer to this movie. It's definitely something that really complements its audience.
Yes.
That I will give it credit for. And not many movies really have that ability to do that. So that about does it for trailer talk, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, it's time for us to enter our discussion pieces. And we have only one. Borderlands 3!
Woo!
Yeah! Woo! The trailer for Borderlands 3 finally got dropped during PAX.
I cannot wait to play that game.
I know, right?
It started off with a little short trailer called Mask of Mayhem, where it was like it was a black background. We get to see like this big old porcelain thing. We get to see all these sequences of new characters and villains, and we see psychos and the usual monsters like the skags and things like that. And it all comes out to show a psycho's mask. And that basically gave us hints that there was a Borderland game in the works. Well, during PAX, we finally got the actual trailer for 3. It's not a spin-off, it's not a prequel or anything like that. It is 3. Borderlands 3 is finally a thing.
But why do I feel like you're gonna be able to travel into different worlds?
It's because you can.
And
Yes.
I really, really want to see that, cause that's good right there.
Oh yeah.
I remember they showed a hologram in Borderlands 2, like
Yep.
when you kill Jack, they put the final,
Yeah, they put in the key
and then
to
it
the
shows
vault.
a bunch of worlds.
Yep.
Yep.
Very, very end of 2, we were able to see that there was this holographic map that showed all these different planets that all had vaults inside of them. And it was hinted that we would be able to explore other worlds, or at least the vault hunters themselves would. So there was a lot of speculations. Are we just going to another planet? Or is it just brand new characters being already on that planet? We never got answers, because after Borderlands 2, what we got instead was Borderlands the pre-sequel, which takes place on Pandora's moon, around the very beginning of Handsome Jack's fall from grace. And then after that, we were told that there's another Borderlands game in development, and we were excited, and it turned out to be Tales from the Borderlands, a Telltale Borderlands series, which I honestly would recommend people play.
It's amazing.
Even though Borderlands doesn't sound like the franchise that would do good as a Telltale game, it is perfect.
I played the demo.
Me
it
and
was
you
good.
both, yeah, we both got to play the very first episode
Chapter.
of the first chapter of Tales from the Borderlands, and it does a really great job to flesh out the story that you don't have time to deal with when you're looting and shooting.
Yeah.
And then we found out that there's another Borderlands game in development, and people had their fingers crossed that it was finally 3, and it turned out to be Borderlands 2 for PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
We had to let it slide because, in all honesty, any Borderlands game on PlayStation VR would have been epic, so I had to let that one slide.
In retrospect, I think it may have been a good idea because it brought Borderlands back sort of into the forefront of the gaming public's consciousness.
Right. And now we finally have 3. So let's talk about some of the things that was introduced to us during the trailer for Borderlands 3. And one thing we have to note are the 2 new villains.
Yep.
Okay, so they're never named in the trailer, but if you look carefully at the signs in the background, you can see that the 2 new revealed villains are Troy and Tyrene, I believe is how that's pronounced. And they are the seemingly brother and sister duo. They look like they're brother and sister. All the framing makes it seem like they're brother and sister.
Yeah. One of them looks incredibly close to Handsome Jack.
Yes, they're the
True.
leaders of the Children of the Vault, which seem to be a new faction on Pandora of potentially brainwashed psychos and citizens that are... We don't know what they want. And we've seen signs referencing free brainwashing and come meet Calypso.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possibly Calypso is maybe even a siren working for the Children of the Vault, possibly leading the Children of the Vault even.
Honestly, it was only a matter of time until Borderlands had a cult in that game. It was kind of surprising that we never directly dealt with a cult in the first place. We had crew that worked for people like Captain Flint in Borderlands 2, but never a direct cult.
I think there were a few like bands of psychos that did like a weird psycho cult.
Oh yeah, the Children of the Phoenix who
Yeah.
worshipped Lilith. Yeah, but man.
I like that character.
Another thing we have to mention about Borderlands 3, because one thing that Borderlands as a series in its whole is famous for, very famous for, is its extensive amount of guns.
So many
Yep.
guns. They've won, I think every game so far has gotten a Guinness record for having the most guns in a video game.
The last one,
Yeah.
Borderlands 2, I believe Borderlands 2 was around like 1 million gun choices, weren't there?
I think it was 100 million.
Yeah.
Around.
And this one has
billion.
1 billion potential gun combinations.
Yeah, and I just want to get in front of this because some people don't seem to understand that this is not 1 billion custom guns made by the developers. The guns in Borderlands are made by random number generation. So you'll get a gun and it'll have random perks and random stats on it.
Just like how in Borderlands 2, you could pick up 2 of the same guns, but they have different names on them and different effects on each one.
Yeah, and there'll probably be quite a few different models for guns. We saw quite a few in the trailer, but it won't be 1 billion different models and handcrafted guns by the developers. Just getting out in front of that because some people are confused.
But I do have 3 words to say. Guns with legs.
Guns with legs.
They literally show a sniper rifle with these teeny tiny little robot legs just prancing around on the field. There are
And-
guns with legs in this game.
And they're just gonna.
I think
shoot
Claptrap
random
is involved in this somehow.
He is
Yep.
in Borderlands 3. The very end of the trailer, you see him breakdancing and dodging like bullet fire and
Oh
missiles.
yeah, and you see him Sector Jet Magnum, but I think specifically he's involved with the guns with legs.
Oh my god. And you know what? It's honestly not I'm excited that there's guns with legs, but it's also not too much of a shocker. Because in Borderlands 2, there were some weird guns in there as well. We had guns that could talk to you. You know, there was one Hyperion robot that turned into a shotgun that enjoyed killing enemies, and then there was a Hyperion sniper rifle you could get that would nag at you for shooting people and running low on ammunition.
Now, we've talked about the guns. We've talked about the villains. Let's talk about some of the heroes. We've
Yes.
got at least 4 new Vault Hunters that we've seen. There are 4 that we know to be Vault Hunters, and we don't know a lot about them, but we can guess. We don't know their names, but there's one with a cloak and a robot face that seems to be able to control stags somehow.
Yeah.
We see him in the back. We see him with a bunch of stags as pets in the background. There's one
Are-
that seems to be able to create duplicates of himself, holograms, and possibly
Yeah.
even summon a tank of some sort, a giant mech walker.
I seen one of the characters. He can actually cloak himself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
There's
he
also
can literally like copy the version of himself as a person to get. That.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
create
like
all that.
Zero's cloak ability, basically.
Yeah.
There was a siren that they showed who seemed to have had the ability to summon like 6 extra arms.
Yeah, these weird energy arms, which I'm guessing means she's going to be a more melee-focused character.
Which
Yeah.
isn't surprising given that each Borderlands game so far seems to have a character whose skill seems to be more towards aggressive play styles.
Like
Yeah.
You had Brick, whose ability was literally just to punch people,
That's
and the
just-
punches did extra damage. In Borderlands 2, you had Krieg, whose special ability was using his buzz axe, running around swinging it at people. So it's not too much of a surprise.
And then there was the 4th Vault Hunter, which is this sort of shorter girl with a like an armored helmet on and
Military setup, yeah.
Yeah, she seemed to be heavily armed, but we didn't really get to see much of what I could recognize as a special ability from her.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just saving that reveal for later.
And there's so many characters that got introduced that are unknown that it's hinted that there might be more than just 4 classes of Vault Hunters to choose from, given that Borderlands 2 decided to branch it out a bit and add 2 extra classes of Vault Hunters to go along with, and those ones were received very well. You had the Necromancer, who could summon her own death machine, or in that game was called Death Trap, and then you had Krieg, who was literally a Psycho. You could play the Psycho class, so it'd be interesting if they added more. But getting to original characters, almost everybody who you know has survived in the Borderlands games, almost all of them, have made appearances in this trailer.
Yes, Brick, Lilith, and Mordecai, I think
Yes.
the same ways from the first one are appearing because Roland died in the second one.
Unfortunately, no Bloodwing.
Yeah, Bloodwing passed away, and we actually see a tribute to Bloodwing
Oh,
on Mordecai's
yeah.
new outfit. From 2, we only have Maya and, I'm blanking on his name.
That's
Not
what-
Axton, Zero. Why,
Zero,
how
yeah.
could I forget
That's,
Zero?
that's
No sign of Axton or Salvador.
Well, there was a character that did look heavily like Axton, except he had more of a mohawk and he had a beard going on.
And that may be him, and he's just changed a lot because some of their appearances have changed.
Yeah, Maya is now donning a hood in the trailer, it seems.
Yeah, from the pre-sequel, we've really just got Claptrap, which could be a different Claptrap. Handsome Jack is, of course, dead in various different ways if you played Tales. There's Athena, who we know survived
The pre-sequel, yeah.
Yeah, survived the pre-sequel. She was in Tales, which was a prequel to the pre-sequel.
Yeah, it happened like after 2, but it details like events before.
Yeah, the pre-sequel's framing device is it takes place after 2, and Tales takes place, like, you see what happens to Athena that leads to her being in the situation she's in the pre-sequel in Tales.
I'm really good at playing as Claptrap in pre-sequel.
Yeah. But yeah, there's also other characters that got introduced.
Like characters from Tales.
Reese.
Reese is back!
He is back, which is something that threw us all off, because honestly, I did not expect anybody from Tales from the Borderlands to have any ability to appear. I love the games, but it felt like Tales was something that probably gets swept under the rug for the next installment. But we see him there, mustache and all.
Yeah, a lot of characters have mustaches. We have Reese with a mustache.
Brick Sack Solo.
Yeah, Brick Sack Solo has a mustache there, but we also see him in a different scene without a mustache. Tiny Tina is also back. We forgot to mention that.
With a new mask that looks a lot like the Donnie Darko rabbit mask.
I don't know about that woman. I can't remember, but it was from Tales from the...
Fiona.
Yeah,
Fiona has not appeared yet. We've seen Reese and Vaughn appeared briefly in the Mask of Mayhem trailer, the weird black and white one.
Yeah.
So he may appear in some capacity. We have no idea about Fiona or any of the other characters.
Sir Hammerlock is appearing in Borderlands 3.
Yeah, Sir Hammerlock, his sister, whose name I don't remember, and a third possible family member appear in one scene.
Yeah.
I only say possible because he looks a lot like Hammerlock, really.
Yep.
Really does, yeah. And, I mean, it is kind of a shame that you don't really see too many people from the pre-sequel, but it makes sense given that Wilhelm is destroyed in Borderlands 2, and you do end up killing the cowboy lady. I forget what her name was.
Neil, something with Neil and...
But you end up dealing with her in a different map in Borderlands 2, so at least 2 of the characters are confirmed to not appear in 3. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the vehicles. Yes, there is literally a giant tire that you could just drive around in with guns attached to the side, like something straight out of a Star Wars movie.
There's a hover tank.
There's a hover tank. They really upped the ante with everything, and I am so excited. I really hope they introduce a new type of gun, because I know that with the pre-sequel we got introduced to frost weapons and laser weapons. In Borderlands 2 was when we were introduced to slag weapons, you know, so it only makes sense if there was another one. But all in all, this seems like a massive upgrade to the Borderlands series.
Yeah, honestly, I'm very excited about it, but I also think we should be a little cautious because this is Gearbox who's making it, and Gearbox, you might remember, was responsible for Alien Colonial Marines. And I get the excitement, and I'm excited about it too, but I also think we should remember we should remember everything Gearbox has done, not just the good stuff.
As exciting as this is, it is important to remember that this is a trailer. And very often with video game trailers, it includes a lot of gameplay that we may or may not actually end up seeing in the final product. I remember everybody got real hyped about Mass Effect Andromeda when the trailer got dropped. And then we got the final results.
I mean, even Borderlands is guilty of this. A lot of people don't remember, but the art style Borderlands has, it didn't have till very late in development. There's still trailers out there where it had a more realistic art style.
Very realistic art style to it. It's very true. But all in all, what are you guys excited for the most about Borderlands 3? I'll let you start off, Lucas, because you played all the other ones before. Out of them all, which part out of the trailer has you the most excited for the game?
The graphics.
The graphics. Yeah, it is a major upgrade. As we mentioned earlier in the episode, there has been a graphics upgrade. The lines aren't as very thickly drawn around the characters. They actually look like modern day game avatars. You know. What about you, Brian? What part about Borderlands 3's trailer has you the most hyped about this game?
I'm excited we're probably going to get some expansion on Tales from the Borderlands stories, because the first season ended on a cliffhanger that it was clear they wanted a second season for, but that didn't happen for a lot of reasons. So I'm excited we're hopefully going to get some closure on this story.
Yeah. For me, when it comes to Borderlands 3, the one that I'm excited about the most is the potential for a much more expanded story. Because until now, any story that we've really had has just been tied to Pandora. To Pandora, its moon, and the Hyperion agency and everything. And that's all we had. And it was a decent amount of story. There's a lot of story in there. If you're into stories where you get to see a character start off good and slowly fall to grace to become the bad guy, you would have to play the Borderlands series just to get Handsome Jack's full story.
Yeah.
One of my favorite video game characters of all time. But now that the fact that there's going to be other worlds for you to explore, other vaults to unlock, new enemies to deal with and everything, potentially a new siren to deal with, one can only be excited for just how much of a bigger picture Borderlands might actually have compared to what we've dealt with, which was essentially just a Mad Max game. Basically. So all in all, I have to say that I am very excited about Borderlands 3 once it finally drops. Without further ado, that about does it for today's episode of The Phone Booth. As always, my name is Edward Heitman. Joining me in the studio, as always, is my good friend and co-host Brian Rodriguez.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my little brother, Lucas Heitman, for being here in the studio with us today. As always, catch us every Saturday from 1 to 2 here on the Voice of San Joaquin's Facebook page, where we talk about anything involving movies, video games, TV, comic books, pop culture, anything. You name it, we'll do our best to cover it. And now, without further ado, please have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.
Bye.